Tim, and welcome to watchyouwant.com. Thanks for logging on. What you're looking at today might be the watch that offers the most content for the money. The most content in any 40mm package of any watch currently on the market. You're looking at the Jaeger-LeCoultre Master 8-Day Perpetual 40mm. Now, this watch combines several distinctive traditions of Jaeger-LeCoultre: in-house movements, 8-day power reserves, complicated perpetual calendars. That's not just perpetual calendars, complicated enough in their own right. That is a perpetual calendar with additional complications. All of it in a stainless steel 40mm case that wears well on any wrist. So let's get into all of these features and unpack them one by one. First of all, a little bit of history. Jaeger-LeCoultre started working with 8-day power reserves in the 1930s, starting with the caliber 875. They basically worked their way towards creating power reserves that would be reminiscent of the heady days of high-end pocket watches, but at the same time would fit into the newly popular contemporary wristwatch format. So their initial complication was just the 8-day power reserve by itself. That was quite an innovation in the day, when just cramming a wristwatch movement into a reliable, small, wearable package was an accomplishment in and of itself. But they are known as the watchmaker to watchmakers for a reason. Now, during the company's early revival period in the 1980s, JLC was part of the same company, one called LMH, or Le Manufacture Horloger, along with IWC, and there was a lot of cross-pollination of technology. Now, JLC was on the brink in the 80s, and there was actually thoughts of closing the manufacturer down and just consolidating it as a movement maker for IWC and other companies in Switzerland. But ultimately, because of the amount of interest in the brand and sentiment, they made one more try. They took the base movement of the caliber 888 and they coupled it to the IWC perpetual calendar and created the first perpetual calendar JLCs of the modern era. Now, by the 1990s, now on firm footing, the company begins to get more ambitious, starts looking at the possibility of coupling one of its more deluxe 8-day power reserve movements from its history to this perpetual calendar module that it received from IWC. So you have the pairing of the 8-day power reserve and the complication from IWC, a perpetual calendar, which not only includes day, date, and month perpetually through irregular numbered months, through leap years, but also gives you a full decade, year, century, moon phase. That's a lot of content, all of it coordinated, so that you only need to set the day and the date, and the moon phase, the month, everything else moves into position in corresponding order. It's not a matter of fiddling with a bunch of pushers and hoping you get it right. Just adjust the date, just adjust the day, everything else falls into place as long as you get the month right. Now, in 2012, you got the final evolution that brings us to the present day, to this Master 8-Day Perpetual 40mm. And that was the reduction of the case size from the somewhat ungainly 41.5, in which this complication debuted, to a much more sculpted, svelte, wearable, and classically proportioned 40mm case. So what you're seeing here is the most highly evolved version of one of JLC's signature complications. So let's go into what makes this watch so special. First of all, you now know the history of JLC 8-day movements from the 30s to the present, the revival of the company through the partnership with IWC on the complications end, and the incorporation of the 8-day and the perpetual. But let's just take a look at how that expresses itself. Now, right here at 3 o'clock, you have the months, basically the days, from 1-31. So there's your month broken down by days. Right here you have the actual calendar months, with every second month skipped represented by a dot. You can see right here between September and November it's indicating October. That's where we are now. You could see that the watch is indicating Monday. You could see that there's actually a second hand hidden on that display that indicates moon phase. And that's one of the nice upgrades of this model over the old 41.5. It has this beautiful, full, rich, dark blue moon phase that really breaks up the monotone silver dial, adds a little element of color and soul. And that's one of the reasons why I think this watch reads as so much more elegant than its predecessor, because it does have that little flourish, that little asymmetry, that little dash of color. And right here, underneath, you can see the century, the decade, and the year 2014. And believe it or not, JLC will sell you parts for the 21st, 22nd, and 23rd century. So you're good to go. Up here, thoughtful little details, unobtrusive until you need them. Then they're quite visible. There is a 1 to 8 power reserve scale. Because this is an 8-day power reserve, it's not that useful if you're constantly forgetting when you last wound it. If you've got to worry about the power reserve, what's the point of having a long one? So you have the little 1 to 8 power reserve scale. Now, a little bit of inside baseball. This watch will run for almost 10 days before it runs out of steam, but for the sake of accuracy, JLC only recommends running it for 8 days in between windings, but the capability is there, and this has been independently tested many times. Up here is actually a day-night indicator that has two elements, the day-night indicator, AM, PM, and underneath this hand that's pointing upwards roughly towards the 1 o'clock, there's a little danger zone indicator that will fill in red when you're not supposed to set the calendar, because with perpetual calendars, generally from about 9 o'clock at night to 3 a.m., you don't want to set the calendar because it's now engaged in changeover, and the changeover takes hours on a perpetual. So that's our little tour of the dial here. So now that we've rounded the bases, let's just talk about the value proposition. This watch is complete with everything you would receive at a Jaeger-LeCoultre boutique or authorized dealer. On the back, you can see beautifully hand-finished caliber 876 with a radial sunburst Soleil Côte de Genève pattern. All of the edges are drawn, beveled, all of the screws are blued. By heat oxidation, none of these are chemically dyed screws. JLC does it the old-fashioned way in a ceramic kiln. All of the bridges beautifully finished with découverture around these, basically the screw countersinks and the jewel countersinks. Kind of hard to express here, but you can see that there's a little bit of a lip around all of these sinks, and in person that comes across as a radiant polish. So not only are you receiving a historic movement, but you're receiving a historic movement finished to the standards of the heyday of mechanical watchmaking in the early to mid-century. So this watch in stainless steel with all factory papers, boxes, hang tag, accessories is a phenomenal value. One of the most complicated watches for the money. It also comes from one of the premier watchmakers in Switzerland, Jaeger-LeCoultre, the watchmaker to kings, the watchmaker's watchmaker. So check out our watches on watchuwant.com, including this Jaeger-LeCoultre Master 8-Day Perpetual 40mm, and our other pre-owned luxury watches. Outstanding quality, outstanding value. Check out our website, and you just may find the watch you want.